Hello, I'm Eli, and this is going to be part 1 in my tutorial series on inversions and insides. Today I'm going to be going over some of the first forms of inside spinning that I learned. This is stuff that I learned about 4 years ago in a class at Flame from Key Lee. So, mad props to you, Key. Alright, so this is the first move we're going to be covering right here. And when I was first learning this stuff, it was taught to me under the name of Lovelaceing. And the terminology's changed over the past few years, but there's still a lot of people out there that still call this Lovelaceing. So what we're doing here is starting spinning forwards with our arms crossed like this, and you're always going to take whichever hand you have on the bottom. So for me right now, that'd be my left hand. So I'm going to take that poi and I'm going to come up through this middle space right here. So it's going to come up and over and right back to the same side now on top. And what you should notice is that I never really uncross my arms, and the poi never weaves from side to side. So if I have here my left poi is spinning on the plane facing you guys, it's always going to be on that plane. It never crosses to the other side. So I'm not coming over here, then up through the middle, and then back. It's just straight up through the center and back to the same side, just like so. And one thing that I find helps a lot is if you actually angle your planes. You'll see now I have one plane facing the camera and one plane facing forwards that way. And what this does is essentially, if you imagine when you cross your arms, you're making an X with your arms. So by angling my planes, what I'm doing is I'm lining the plane of one poi up with the forearm of my other. So this plane's in line with that forearm, and this plane's in line with the other forearm. And this helps for getting the poi through that inside space, because that's where you're going to have the most space, is coming up through the side towards your armpit as opposed to directly through the center where your chest is. Now for this particular move, it doesn't make much of a difference. You can do it with your planes perfectly straight. But when you start to get into some of the other forms of this same movement, it starts to get a little trickier, and it definitely becomes easier if your planes are bent at an angle. So next we're going to cover the same thing in reverse, and it really is pretty much the same process, except for when spinning in reverse, you always take the top hand. So right now that's my right hand, the hand closer to the camera. So I'm going to take the top hand, come down through the middle, just like that. It's always top hand down. You'll notice there's always one extra beat in between each one. So I'm not doing down, 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 and back like that, because that would just be coming into a buzzsaw and back. So one hand stays where it is, the other one loops, does one beat as the other one comes through, and then it repeats. Alright, so next we're going to cover a slightly different move, and this I've always heard referred to as the not Colman, which is kind of a silly name. The story behind that is that the guy who is credited with first coming up with it was named Colman. His friends decided to call it the Colman, and I guess he didn't really approve of that name, so they started calling it the not Colman, and it stuck, and a lot of people refer to this weave as the not Colman. Actually, I probably shouldn't call it a weave. But what we're doing here, starting in forwards, as opposed to taking the bottom hand up, we're always going to be taking the top hand down. And in order to do that, if you look at my left hand, the hand closer to the camera, that's the one on top right now. So I'm going to take that hand down through the center and back out like that. And it helps if you turn towards it. So whichever hand's on top, my left hand's on top, over on my right side, I'm going to turn towards my right where that poi is spinning. So I'm going to turn towards it and down, just like that, to switch. And then back to the other side, like that. And you get this move. One of the things I really like about this move is that it looks good from any angle. Like if I face my planes to where they're facing towards and away from the camera, it looks like that. But even if I were to turn and face myself directly at the camera, it still looks great. Like, it really does not matter what angle you look at this from. Alright, now the same thing in reverse. So once again, we're going to switch it. Instead of top down, we're going to do bottom up. So from here, I'm going to take my bottom hand, my right hand, the side closer to the camera, and I'm going to turn towards the camera. Swing it up like that. The slower you go, the easier this will be. And then it repeats like that. So another great way to apply this same movement is to do it in butterfly, say from a thread the needle. So if you got your butterfly right here, what we're going to be doing is top hand down. So whichever hand you have on top is going to come down like that. See that? So if I put my right on top, I'm going to turn to the side as it comes into the inside like that. So it's the same basic idea that we started with from the buzzsaw, and you can start here or you can start here and switch like that. But if you just do it from a thread the needle top down each time, you end up with this. And you just rock this side to side each time the plane comes in towards the center to come down that central hole that you make when you cross your arms. And this feels a lot like a thread the needle. The rhythm and the balance are all very similar. The only difference is where the planes are going. And you can do the same thing spinning this way, so with them going down in the middle, and now I'm always going to take the bottom hand up, like that. Now this is same time butterfly, and you can do the same movements in split time. It gives you a little more time in between each passing, where you come in like this. Alright, let's take a step back real quick. Once you've gotten from forwards, having the hands coming up through the middle or the hands coming down, you can actually do both of those at the same time, and this is what most people refer to as an introversion. So what this looks like, if I'm doing this on your side, I'm going to start with my left hand on top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn towards you guys. My left hand, the top one, is going to come down the center hole, while my bottom hand simultaneously comes up the center hole. And just real quick to show you what this looks like. That. Now in order to do this, you'll notice it really helps if you widen out your stance like this, because you need to create a lot of space right here. You need enough room between elbow to elbow for both poi to pass through. Like that. And this one's definitely a little trickier than the other ones, just because there's not quite as much space. And this is where it really is going to help if your planes are bent, since they both have to fit in that center space at the same time. It's going to be very useful if they're bent. This is what it looks like if you do it on both sides. And there's two ways to think of this. Now when your planes are bent, you're kind of halfway between split time same direction and split time opposite direction. So if you'll notice, if I face my planes directly at the camera and do it this way, it looks very split time same direction. But if I were to turn and face the camera and do it like this, I'm doing the exact same thing, but you'll notice right now it looks a lot more like I'm in butterfly. So you can think of it in two ways. You can think of it as if you are just in butterfly, doing it this way, or you can think of it more like you're in same time or split time same direction. Alright, so a quick recap of everything I just covered. The basic Lovelace from forwards is always bottom hand up. bottom hand up. To do the slightly more advanced one that people call the knot Colman, it's always top hand down, turning into it, like so. And then from reverse, you just switch all those things around. So in reverse, the basic Lovelace is always top down, and the more advanced one is bottom up. And then we got the butterfly version, like this. And then we've got the intro version, which is top down and bottom up. Alright, well, I hope that was helpful. Do keep an eye out. There will be more of these to come in the future. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.